What? I'm just sitting like this, waiting to start. Okay, I think I'm ready. Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at a movie that many people have forgotten ever since the idea was sold. There's a TV show, a very kind of scary TV show, simply known as The Addams Family. The Addams Family was a 1960s television series that aired for less than we've all noticed. And you might wonder why. Well, you shouldn't. Why should you not wonder why? Because the show actually is a perfect tradition for this year's Halloween. Halloween this year is going to be different because we don't have as many horror movies coming out. Instead, we have movies like this. The Addams Family movie. There was an Addams Family movie in 1991, but we're not talking about that. We're going to talk about the 2019 release as an animated feature of the Addams Family. And guess what? There actually is a cartoon based off the television series, which inspired the Addams Family movie, which could have also just been the chance to inspire there being an animated movie. Either way, we're going to look at this animated movie and see what it does. And we're not going to compare it to the original television series, simply because I don't remember it very well. We're going to compare this to the original movie from 1991. And for the actors, the story, the jokes, all that. Without further ado, let's get ready for the review. Our casting choices for this movie are very different compared to the original. In the original, they didn't choose any actors that were played in the original show. But that's okay, because these actors are still by far wonderful. They decided to get the good old Morticilla to be voiced by Angelica Huston, played by Angelica Huston. You might know her from The Witches, which is a scary movie that came out the year before The Addams Family, but it wasn't meant for Halloween. It was still a scary movie. Or how about Gomez being played by Raul Julia in the original? They look pretty alike, actually, so that's a good choice. Another good choice was to have Jimmy Workman and Christina Ricci playing the two kids. And while they don't really look as true as the original, they still act as real as the original. But I think our real choice character would have to be Uncle Fester, being played by Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd plays Uncle Fester in this movie, and he does a by far wonderful job. Not only is it funny, but it connects well to the original show and cartoon, and has a nice little thing for the characters. Any side-alongs? Well, the grandma's played by Judith Malina, who is an old actor. She's pretty much dead by now. Or the zombie witch played by Carol Struckhead. You don't know who he is, does he? These casting choices are alike and pretty well done. Any other characters? Well, not really much. These are the only main characters of the family. Now let's look at the main characters of the family and their voice actors in the new version. In the new version, they have Morticia, instead of Angelica Huston doing the voice, they got Charlize Theron to voice her. And she does an okay job, but it isn't very alike compared to what we saw from her in the original. Either way, they at least did something for the very least. Or how about have Gomez being voiced by Oscar Isaac? Yeah, that's right. Oscar Isaac does the voice. Why? Not because they could look alike, because they don't very much. Because they think his voice could connect well. Does it? About so. More to the original show than the movie. Or how about have the kids, instead of being played by characters in real life, they have the voices being done by Finn Wolfhard and Chloe Grace Moretz. Yep, that's right, that's who their voices are. Good jobs? About so. Better? Actually, about so. I know, I don't always say that. Or how about Uncle Fester not being played by Christopher Lloyd? Yeah, they went there. Instead, he's being voiced by Nick Kroll. Nick Kroll does the voice. Nick Kroll was okay, tries to be funny in his animated movies, and when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. He was funny in Sausage Party, that counts, doesn't it? Or the grandma being voiced by Betty Midler. Do we know who he is? No. Anyway, any side-alongs? Why, yes, there are side-alongs. In the original, the side-along's name is Margaret, and she's played by Dana Ivey. Okay, that's something. Another side-along is Tully, who's played by Dan Hedaya. They're two inspectors who want to take over the house and see if they can meet the family very well. And they do. They meet the family and notice how weird and obnoxious they are. They just try to be as nice as they can as possible and actually fit in. In the new version, it's different. We don't get those two. We get instead a friend of Wednesday who doesn't even really have any connections. However, the animation for her looks scary, as she's played by Elsie Fisher. Voiced by Elsie Fisher, actually. I get mixed up with these ideas. And her mom, voiced by Allison Janney. Instead of being two actors and two helpers being two relationships and all, they're instead helpers and for a neighborhood that lives close to theirs new house. Or how about Cousin It? Do we know who he is? He's a long hairy person with a bunch of hair on him. Weird. In the original, Margaret gets a relationship with him, where in the original he's played by John Franklin. Weird kind of character, because he doesn't speak in real voice, he just has the voice. In the new version, he actually has a backwards ideal voice, when it's instead voiced by, you're not going to believe this, Snoop Dogg. Yeah, Snoop Dogg does the voice. And before we cut to conclusion, there's actually a new character in the Addams Family, a lion. In the original, we didn't have a lion, but in this version, it is a lion. Why? It's to do the Metro Goldwyn Mayer reference. I don't know. Maybe that. There's a hand, but he doesn't have a voice. Just moves. In the original, they use him as a tool. In the new version, they use him as a scary thing for idea. Now let's look at the characters in general. In the original version, they're all living the right way, you know? In this version, they're different. One thing I find different and unnecessary about them is they're all white. Yeah, you heard me right. All the characters are literally colored white. Well, Amar, they're white colored. Maybe it is. But what I'm saying is that their white design isn't really compatible. Like, they could have just had an idea to use a real skin color, because in the original they did. It turns out that Gomez is like the only character in the movie who actually is correctly colored. And that does sound racist like the kid just said, but maybe they would have been easy to do, because animation's better made by nowadays. Anyway, what's to love? Which family do I think is more more connectable as an Addams Family? In my opinion, I'm gonna give this to the original. The new family's okay and all, but the original family has a simple side. And I won't mind that. Now let's look at the jokes in the movies. Which jokes are better compared to the original movie release or the new movie release? Let's see. Now, for the original version, the jokes are actually connection to the original show. How? They're jokes based upon how they live. As a family who's rude, evil, and scary, do dangerous jokes. Like, the classic, can I solve? What's the magic word? Now. Or the classic, Mom, can I please cut my brother? Jokes. In the new version, those are really the jokes. The jokes are all, different, as they're all about what they do and what their personality is and how they connect. That's more of a life-side family joke than for a joke used for original, because the original was a family movie. In the new version, it's kind of more connected to children, and not a lot of children, as you probably guessed, never really saw the original show. Maybe the cartoon, but the cartoon is forgettable when the original show isn't, for us like us. It spends the entire movie as they all just do the same ideal joke. Being a family who doesn't live like anybody else. That advantage is taken more into the new version. In the original version, the advantage is taken to what they do in their daily life, as it actually follows one character in the original. In the original, it follows Uncle Fester, the one character really only. Everybody else didn't really followed much in the movie. Uncle Fester's kind of like the only character in the movie who we have to pay attention to. Oh, and there's Margaret, but she's not really important either. In the new version, we do get to see a character with everyone. With, Gomez and Morticia having one story, Wednesday having a story, Pugsley having a story, Fester doesn't have a story. Yeah, that's right. They literally give every character their story and leave Fester out, because we already knew what story he had in the original. Well, I could say that makes sense, but honestly, they could at least give him more screen time, because with that advantage, they didn't give him as much screen time as everybody else. They just gave him the old, hey, we already used him a lot in the original. You might as well just let his screen time stay. What in this version? Was that a good idea? I don't know if I could say that, but it certainly was a good one. So, which version has the better jokes? The original. The new version's jokes are fine, but in the original it's just more, because in the new version most of it goes by to Uncle Fester, and they changing him from Christopher Lloyd was kind of not a good idea, simply because the actor's animated, so we don't see him, we just hear him. Christopher Lloyd, you're still a great actor. I don't care how old you are or how many movies you're not in nowadays. You still make me enjoy you. Great Scott. You're wonderful. Now, let's go on to the story. Compare them, contrast them. Yes, we will. So the storyline's very, how do I say this, different. Let's first go by the original story, then we'll go by the new story and see what that thing is. In the original story, it's simple. A family who lives like no one else does, but then Margaret and Tully come in and meet the family, and that's just how they all do. They try getting along and all that, and then Uncle Fester comes, and they want to make him part of the family as much as possible, but he doesn't get it very well, and they believe he's not really part. But as it turns out that his other helper want to keep him and have him with the entire house, so it turns out the Addams family had to leave the house. But it turns out one of them is in trouble, and Uncle Fester has to give up living with them and still be staying with the family and join the family. As Margaret also joins the family, and so does Tully, as they're part of the family now, and they have some real connection with them, and that's how it ends. Now let's look at the new version of the Addams family. The new version of the Addams family is different story. Instead of talking about family members, it talks about racism more. That's kind of like the plot of the movie, racism. In the original story, the kind of lesson was family comes better first when it comes to who you are and who you want to be with. You don't have to be exactly the same. You just gotta know who you're with. This version is a lesson more about don't be racist, enjoy who you live with. So let's see what it's about. In this story, it actually follows the family moving into a new place, and then the whole family's born, because it opens with just Gomez and Morticia getting married. Yeah, we didn't see that in the original. We just opened with family, not really nothing else. And so that's what it does. And let's see, where do they move? They moved to a house they believe they can live in troubles. That's how the Addams family was born. They get family members and all that. And how's it go? Well, they just start living with family problems and everywhere. When it turns out then there is a neighborhood who wants to go through their home and do something to it. With a star that tries to be somebody, but hey, let's see. What reaction do we get? Instead of getting the reaction of being like, we instead get the character reaction of being like, but that's not a problem. Why? Because she's the villain of the movie, yeah. You know those animated movies that open with a character you think is nice, but when you get to know her more, it turns out that he actually is a real antagonist? Well, that's the case here. Well, her kid wants to become friends with Wednesday. Why? Because she looks just as scary as her. Yeah, go see the movie and you should check the animation out because it looks scary. As she befriends her and wants to live more with her than with the family, as they don't like it. As she wants to enjoy more relationship with her as she does, because she's weird, ugly, and all the stuff she does. Her reaction is the phrase, "Awesome! Totally awesome!" I know, stupid, isn't it? My editing or that? Yeah. Anyway, let's look at what happens next. What happens next is that Margaret, who is the antagonist of the movie, wants to fix their home and turn it into something else. In the original, the family wants to take over the house, but in this one, they want to destroy the house and the family. Well, they just do a bunch of stuff. What about with the other kid, Pugsley? Pugsley is having trouble wanting to do sorting. It's weird, because in the original film, that had to do with Uncle Fester, and this one has to do with Pugsley. Guess they really don't like Uncle Fester in this movie, because they, like I said, they give him more screen time. Anyway, they just keep doing this and that, this and that, and this and that, until then, it turns out Margaret actually is able to get the whole neighborhood to want to destroy their house. Wow. How evil. They're evil. As the family wants to stop Bowman, but in the most, not as evil way possible, more superhero-ish way possible. Maybe they're superheroes. Maybe it's like Ghost Rider, where they're anti-superheroes. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Anyway, yep, they all... Oh, as when the house is finally destroyed and they're all together, the whole neighborhood thinks they are a family and not evil. I guess that's what it is. And she gets blamed, villainized, and she spies on everyone. What if that's not a villain? Like, she spies on me. You would not want to know what I do in my spare time. Seriously, you would not want to know what I do in my spare time. You really wouldn't. As it turns out, she gets villainized as what happens? Well, they finally do the right thing. The movie finally does the right thing. Give Uncle Fester the character to turn her good. Wow, look at that. The one time they can make Uncle Fester something. Out of all the times. So that's what they do. And it turns out the family's back together again. The house is clean. It was built. They rebuilt it in a nice color, but then it gets all dark. Don't know how that works, and everything's good. I guess. So the lesson of the movie was not to be racist, I guess. That's pretty much a good lesson. Which one do I find better? The original or the new one with their story? Story I'm going to have to give to the new one. I like the original story, but the new version has a better idea than story. Now, which movie out of those two is better? The original. Why? It just is funnier, more attractive, has an easier relationship to the show. While this version doesn't have a big relationship, still is good at what they're doing and still makes sense for what it is. And I like that. I like it a lot. I like what it's doing. So, all that being said, it's a good movie. Doesn't beat it, but still is worth watching if you are a fan of the show, the original movie, or anything that has to do with the Addams family. Thanks for watching, and I gotta go. Now, our next review is gonna come after Halloween, because this whole month is gonna be about Halloween. And, guess what? Yep, Halloween's coming soon, and when Halloween comes, I'll be doing a list of stuff that's even scarier. Scarier! Scarier! Scarier!